My lazy coworker refused to do his work, smirking. "That's what you're here for." When I complained, my boss laughed and said, "Just pick up his slack, it's easier." Weeks later, they both turned pale as I walked into a meeting as their new manager. I started working at a logistics company in Chicago, Illinois. It was a decent job, and I was eager to prove myself. Early on, I was paired with a coworker named Mike. Mike was charismatic but incredibly lazy. He often delegated his tasks to me, saying things like, "That's what you're here for." I approached our supervisor, Mr. Reynolds, about the workload imbalance. He chuckled and said, "Just pick up his slack, it's easier." Feeling unsupported, I decided to document everything. I kept records of tasks assigned, completed, and who did what. After months of hard work and meticulous documentation, a managerial position opened up. I applied, attaching my detailed records as evidence of my contributions and leadership potential. To my surprise, I was offered the position. My first meeting as a manager included both Mike and Mr. Reynolds. As I walked into the room, their faces turned pale. I addressed the team, outlining new expectations and accountability measures. Mike was now required to report directly to me, and Mr. Reynolds was reassigned. With the new structure, productivity improved significantly. Mike eventually left the company, unable to meet the new standards. Mr. Reynolds adapted to his new role, and we maintained a professional relationship. This experience taught me the importance of perseverance and standing up for oneself. By documenting my work and staying committed, I turned a challenging situation into an opportunity for growth and leadership. Things didn't stay smooth after I got promoted. About 2 weeks into the role, I started noticing small things. Files I had already processed would go missing. Tasks I had assigned would somehow not get done, even though I clearly saw them marked off. Then, there were emails, some that I never received, and others that mysteriously showed up flagged as unread and urgent, even though I knew I had already answered them. At first, I brushed it off. New role, more responsibility, maybe I was just overwhelmed. But then one morning I came into the office and found someone had gone into my locked drawer. A file I had stored there, a file containing printed records I had collected before my promotion, was missing. That file had notes about Mike's past behavior and Reynolds' responses. It was gone. I didn't panic. I didn't say anything either. I bought a mini camera from Best Buy that night and set it up inside my desk. I also started backing up all emails, files, and internal messages to an encrypted external drive I kept in my car. Then it got worse. During one of our team calls, Mike made a snide comment. "Management ain't as easy as it looks, huh?" Everyone laughed awkwardly. Reynolds just smirked. I watched them closely. Mike started cozying up to some of the staff who had been with the company for years, whispering in break rooms. Private Slack messages that stopped when I entered. I wasn't stupid. I knew he was trying to turn people against me. A week later, HR called me. Apparently, there was an anonymous complaint about me being unfair and micromanaging. The report claimed I was playing favorites and that I had created a hostile environment. I asked for proof. They couldn't give me anything specific, just vague comments. I calmly asked HR to monitor my department's communication channels for the next 30 days. I also emailed them daily summaries of every decision I made and why. Everything documented. Around that same time, I noticed that Reynolds was being unusually quiet in meetings. He was still showing up, but he'd stopped talking much. I later learned he'd been quietly applying for jobs elsewhere and even had an interview lined up. He thought I didn't know, but someone in another department tipped me off. Corporate grapevine is a powerful thing. Then came the final straw. One afternoon, Mike was supposed to send a critical shipping update to our client in Houston. It never got sent. The client called me, furious. I checked the logs. Mike had marked it completed, but the system showed it hadn't even been drafted. When I called him into my office, he tried to lie. "You must have deleted it. Or maybe the system glitched." I showed him the system logs. He went quiet. No apology. Just crossed his arms and said, "Guess that's on you now, boss." I reported the incident to HR with documentation, screenshots, and timestamps. That night, I called in a favor from someone I trusted at corporate, someone who owed me for a favor I did during the early days. I asked them to do a quiet internal audit. The next morning, 2 people from corporate flew in. They weren't here to talk to me. They were here to talk to everyone else. And that's when things started unraveling. The 2 people from corporate didn't come in suits. No big announcement. No formal meetings. They just showed up quietly on a Wednesday and started talking to everyone on the floor. Casual. Like they were just visiting. That's how I knew they meant business. I didn't talk to them that day. They didn't approach me, and I didn't interrupt. But by Friday, things felt tense. Mike was quieter than usual, but still cocky. Reynolds kept disappearing for hours. Then one of the long-timers, Janet, stopped me in the hallway and whispered, "They're asking about old files. I think they know more than they're letting on." The following Monday, I got called into a meeting. Not with HR. With corporate. They had a folder. Inside were printed transcripts of Slack messages, emails, file access logs. Things I hadn't seen. Things I didn't know existed. Turns out, Mike had been deleting or delaying client communications on purpose. For months. There were messages where he joked about watching me crash and burn. There were Slack messages between him and Reynolds where they laughed about the Houston screw-up and said, "Let's see how long the golden boy survives." They weren't just trying to make my job hard, they were actively sabotaging the department. But here's where it got really twisted. The internal audit uncovered something else. Mike had a connection to one of our major clients, the Houston one. A cousin. They'd been faking minor issues with shipments to create confusion, then blaming it on me and pushing Reynolds to suggest my removal for performance reasons. If it worked, Mike would step up as the natural replacement. And Reynolds? He was helping because he had a side deal lined up with the same client. If Mike got promoted, Reynolds would consult for the client and pull a tidy monthly fee. No one else knew. They didn't think anyone would find out. I just sat there, listening. My stomach felt like lead, but I stayed quiet. The audit team thanked me for my cooperation, like I was a witness, not the manager. I asked if I needed to take any action. They said no, but to keep doing things exactly how you have been. A few days passed. Then the storm hit. Reynolds didn't come in one morning. Later that afternoon, we got a company-wide email that he was no longer with the company. No warning. No farewell. Just gone. Mike came in the next day, red in the face. The swagger was gone. I didn't say a word to him, but I noticed his login wasn't working. Around 11 a.m., he packed up and left without saying goodbye. Word traveled fast. The department was quiet for a day or two. Nobody looked me in the eye. Some people avoided me altogether. Then, out of nowhere, the Houston client dropped us. Just like that. A big hit to the company, but no one blamed me. Everyone knew who was behind that mess now. Corporate brought in a new regional director to help clean things up. And that's when I found the real kicker. In a quarterly meeting, the new director shared a chart showing which departments had suffered the most losses due to client-side interference. Ours was at the top. Then he said, "Thanks to internal cooperation, we've corrected that course." He looked right at me when he said it. And that would have been enough. Really, that alone would have been a solid win. But what happened next? That's when things really changed. And not in the way I expected. I didn't expect to feel uneasy after they were both gone. You'd think I'd feel relief. I didn't. I felt like something was still coming. I started checking my own tracks again. Rereading my emails. Double-checking notes. Maybe it was habit. Maybe it was something else. 3 weeks after the corporate cleanup, I got a late-night call. It was from someone in another branch I barely knew. She said someone was asking questions about me. About whether I had leaked client data or taken kickbacks. Her tone said it all. Someone was trying to flip the narrative. At first I thought Mike. but he was out. Fully gone. Then I remembered Reynolds had access to a lot of shared folders. He could have planted stuff. Maybe even before he got fired. I dug into old backups. Spent all weekend reviewing drive logs and IP records. Found a few login times that didn't make sense. On a Sunday at 2 a.m.? Reynolds was sloppy. But he wasn't the only one. While going through everything, I found an email I had sent during the early chaos. It was meant to defend myself. I had attached screenshots and forwarded some confidential client messages to my personal email, planning to use them just in case. I had completely forgotten. And now, even though my intent was to protect myself, it was technically a violation. I knew it. If corporate found it, I could be fired. Or worse, blacklisted. So now I had a choice. I could keep quiet and hope it never came up. Or I could come clean. That night, I didn't sleep. In the morning, I sent a full report to the audit team. Explained the mistake. Attached everything. Told them it was to protect myself when no one else would. Told them I understood if they had to take action. Then I waited. For days passed. No reply. I went to work like nothing happened. But I kept waiting for that email. Or a calendar invite titled Discussion. Finally, it came. The new regional director called me into a video meeting. She was calm. Too calm. I thought this was it. But instead, she said, "We reviewed everything. Including your honesty. You violated policy, yes. But your intention wasn't malicious. And you came forward when most people wouldn't." Then she said something that still rings in my head. "We're promoting you to oversee 3 regional teams. You're being watched, but you're also being trusted." I stared at the screen. Didn't say anything for a long time. Then finally nodded. But the story doesn't end there. A month later, I found out Reynolds tried to sue the company for wrongful termination. His case didn't even make it past the first hearing. Why? Because during the audit, they found records of him trying to backdate reports and forge client feedback. Not only did he lose the case, but his name went into internal blacklists across the entire logistics industry. He's not getting hired again anywhere that matters. Mike? He tried to start his own consulting firm. Lasted 3 weeks. Word got out fast. No one wanted to work with a guy who sabotaged his own manager and failed upward. As for me, I'm still in the role. I don't act like a saint. I don't pretend I didn't make a mistake. But I kept every single piece of paper, every message, every file organized, backed up, and secure. The people who tried to ruin me wanted chaos. They got it in their own lives. And the worst part? They brought it on themselves. All I had to do was keep going. But I still keep a drawer locked. Not for them. For me. Just in case.